Mr. Saul Alinsky, who was born in Chicago in 1909, will come to your town, as he has to 40 others, to organize the poor. That may mean an end to orderly traffic, might mean sit-ins in City Hall, the cultivation of racial animosities, but Mr. Alinsky claims that's the way to get the toilets fixed in the slum buildings and to bring pride and a sense of dignity to the poor people. Something like the sense of dignity which presumably Sitting Bull and his people felt after a massacre. You do have fascinating general notions. For instance, you said, I'll steal before I'll take charity.
No.
Now, suppose I'm the person you're going to steal it from. Would you consult my feelings if I were to say to you before stealing from me, please won't you just take it? Or is it the act of stealing that gives you the satisfaction that you require?
Oh, of course not. You know better than that. It isn't the act of stealing.
Well, then it is charity. Why don't you take charity then?
Well, you know what I meant by charity, just going to getting welfare handouts and...
But welfare handouts are the product of philanthropy.
When I talk about power, and I'm using it strictly as it's defined in Webster's Unabridged as the ability to act, I'm saying that people do not get power except when they take it, or when they're strong enough so that the other side gives it up, or at least gives up its what would be a compromise arrangement. Compromise to me is not a dirty word. I think if I had to define the whole democratic process in one word, I would use that word. As far as the little example you gave, which is so academic, in the first place, if you're going to steal anything from somebody, he isn't going to be around to say to you, why don't you
Sometimes they are. It happens every day in New York. You know.
I read your column on that one.
Okay. Yeah, you say your money, your money or your life. Jack Benny says, well, I'll have to think it over. But they're often around, and in effect, you have that call it choice. But you do have a feeling. You said a moment ago just now that you only get power if you wrest it from somebody.
Yeah, well, you only get power as a reaction to a threat, I think.
But that's not true.
Oh, of course it is.
Suppose everybody in this room decided to nominate you as our leader. You would then have power over us. This doesn't mean that you wrested it from us.
If everybody in this room decided to nominate me as their leader, I wouldn't have any power to do anything.
It has nothing to do with that.
That's,
why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? If we pledged our allegiance to you.
I'd have a bunch of kids and you. Well, your columns might be of some help for a while.
No, but suppose you
that's all. I'm looking at it very pragmatically.
Suppose you were in a position to deploy us in any way that you chose, we having decided to give you that power. Why haven't we actually vouchsafed you something?
Well, in the first place, I have never taken that kind of power.
That's not a relevant answer. I'm trying to understand your philosophy here, and I find it difficult to do.
Well, do you want to understand my philosophy?
Desperately.
You do? Well, then, can you sort of be desperately silent for about 1 minute or 2 minutes? All right, I'll go with you on it.
3.
3. All right, as far as I'm concerned, living in the world as it is, you don't have the choice of what's best. Every judgment that is made on the basis of alternatives. On that basis, I find myself totally committed to the fact that a free and open, what we call, roughly speaking, a democratic society is the best way of life that we have. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm willing to buy the Churchill definition that it may be it's a lousy way of life, but it's the best way that we know of. Now, I find, in terms of my own acceptance and understanding of our political situation, I find myself very much in agreement with the thinking of the early revolutionary leaders. I'm thinking of men like Madison J. Hamilton, etc., who I think were extraordinarily politically sophisticated and very well read and very thoughtful in terms of the implications of their actions, and very much aware of the fact that of the world that they were living in. It was not, and they weren't getting it mixed up with the world as they would like it to be. But that this was a jump-off point, that they were heading towards a future where mankind could always be improving or living a happier life full of potentials for, and you find yourself drifting into cliches here of achieving his own dignity, freedom, equality, etc. Now, the one thing that they were concerned about in this kind of a life is that while things would always be changing, that basically whatever future there was to the future of an open society, it rested in the fact of having as many people involved as citizens, being able to act as citizens, able to act power.
Freedom is participation in power, I agree, yeah.
All right. And that if we ever ran into a situation in this country where a large sector of our population was disenfranchised politically and economically, etc., and I'm not talking about equality in terms of equal income or anything else of that sort, but if we ever ran into that kind of situation, that it would very well become malignant and bring down the hopes for the future. As a matter of fact, de Tocqueville makes the same point on it in his speculations of future, this new way of life. Now, what is involved here is, and I have to answer you on two levels here. One is a commitment to the development of the combination of circumstances in those sectors of our society that are disenfranchised, whereby through organization, which is really a synonym for ability to act in this world, the only reason people ever organize, in fact, in order to be able to put things into practice, ideas that they have, in order to belong, in order to have the power to be part of the
to maximize their leverage, yeah.
Yeah, or to get leverage to even begin with, where they don't have any.
You got leverage if you can vote.
Yeah, but there are large sectors of our population that weren't even able to vote.
You talking about Rochester?
No, I'm talking about Mississippi. I'm talking about the South. I'm talking about the whole basis in many sectors of this country in terms of the Civil Rights Revolution. You have to have that. You even have to have it, if I might digress for a moment, on a simple situation that, let's say people are organized. You do not have that complex, that is called a political complex, and I'm using political strictly in the Greek sense here, whereby through getting together, through having a convention, through having a election of officers, agreement on policies and so forth, that they can turn to other sectors of society and say, here are our representatives. These are the men for you to deal with in the democratic give and take and hauling, decision-making, etc. Without this, which I think is a primary element in the democratic mix, the whole democratic society begins to founder. Let's take Detroit right after the riots that occurred. Let's assume that the powers that be deciding, as they did decide when they got together afterwards, we've got to deal with the representatives of the black ghettos. And they turn to the black ghettos and say, send us your representatives. Who's going to come forward?
I think what's most interesting about yourself, at least most people, is this distinctive appeal that you have to certain types of people who recognize that there is a problem of the poor. You appeal to some of them because you have this disdain for welfarism, as suggested by that ultimatum of yours that you rather steal than receive welfare. Now, this appeals to a lot of people sort of conservative-minded who are against welfare because they do believe that there is going on in this country a sort of institutionalization of welfare, that we ought to get out of it, and that to be essentially human, you've got to make your own way. So you appeal to them. On the other hand, you appeal, they would be conservatives in a way, you appeal also to liberals and radicals because yours is a highly non-rhetorical approach. You actually want to organize the poor, and you want to cause them to demand things. And you seem to be utterly either unconscious, or if not unconscious, at least insensible to the normal niceties of approach. When you want something, you simply want it.
It isn't my wanting.
Well, when you figure out they want it, yeah. Now, for instance, you were perfectly prepared, as I understand it, to close down City Hall a while ago in Chicago. Just send wave after wave of people there just to close it down. It was make it impossible for the mayor to go in or the mayor to go out, or the sheriff to go in, the sheriff to go out. And
I've been involved in so many of these things, I'm trying to remember which one that was.
Woodlawn, yeah. And you're perfectly prepared to cause a tremendous amount of commotion out in the suburban areas where landlords live, so as to force the neighbors, as you put it, themselves to put pressure on the delinquent landlords to make those reforms.
Well, that was pure pragmatism, because people only do the right things for the wrong reasons. And I wanted to get the white neighbors to put the pressure on their white slum landlord in order to get rid of the Negro pickets that were in the community. They weren't doing it for equality.
That's once again, it seems to me that you obtrude into the discussion your own essential cynicism.
That's not cynicism, that's realism.
No, it isn't.
No, it isn't.
Come on. I know a lot of people do things they don't want to do at all. And they do them simply because they think it's the right thing to do. I'll introduce you to some, if you like, later on.
Are they all conservative?
No, they're of every stripe. A lot of them are liberals, some of them radicals, some of them are communists. Can I quote you exactly? Quote, "There is no evolution without revolution, and there are no revolutions without conflict, and this is the line which separates liberals from radicals."
Where'd you get that from?
Harper's.
All right.
I'll show it to you after if you like.
No, I'll buy it.
Yeah. Now, isn't this once again one more expression of your belief that what progress is made by some sort of a Hegelian sense of controversy, conflict, antithesis, and so on? You just finished discussing the fact that there exists in Chicago now something that is substantially better than was there 5-6 years ago. And then you say, don't you understand, the reason it came into being was because of the Woodlawn operation. And sure, the Woodlawn operation involved conflict. It necessarily had to. And I'm asking whether or not progress can't be made without conflict.
No, I don't believe so. I think that the most insidious, the most subversive force that has ever entered the American scene has been what I would call Madison Avenue public relations, middle-class moral hygiene, which has made the word conflict a nasty word, and controversy a very nasty word, so that people are fired off of mass media for controversy.
But don't you think that reason... Well, I obviously, I have a stake in the toleration of controversy. But I want to ask you this. Can't one achieve progress by reason? Or must it be by a conflict of force?
Even on the basis of reason. The moment you come up with a new idea, it promptly challenges the prevailing sacred cow of the older idea, and you've got a conflict going on. I think that controversy is a matrix of everything creative that comes out of life.
We got Medicare in this country, and we got as a result of a lot of discussion. Now, mightn't Alinsky students have felt that you need to shoot a few doctors or let a few people die for lack of medical attention before you'd have the kind of conflict that's necessary to midwife Medicare? And I'm asking, why can't you have...
I've been fascinated by your eyes in previous shows I've watched. Now, will you look at me and tell me whether you believe what you're saying?
Well, of course, no. What I'm trying to do is extract from you disbelief in what people understand you to be believing. Perhaps because I'm terribly refreshed that you're constantly shocked that people at quotations I throw at you of things you've said.
I'm not shocked.
I'm delighted.
This
shows great progress.
I'm just correcting some of the misquotations.
And all right, if you're saying therefore that conflict is what we're doing right now, then I agree with you that conflict is probably necessary to the changing of any point of view. But most people understand you to be saying something much more
and what they're understanding is closer to it than just our discussion. I don't want to get take a pass on.
Yeah.
I'm saying very unreservedly that all progress comes as a response to a threat, and the reaction to the threat is when you get progress. I'm saying that that all actions of history have come that way.
That's
it doesn't necessarily have to be violence.
Why? But that's not true. What was the threat? What is the relevant threat? Let's say when John decides to marry Jane.